We've been on a hike already. Whew. We have gone from helpless to hopeful, and now we're just going to increase our travels because we're going to trek from this point more. We're going to be traveling even more distance. Now, we did travel a little bit, and we came to a body of water, but as we trek, it's going to be different because we're going to be in the water for this whole part of the adventure together. And hopefully in the process, we're going to go from terrified to trusting, two very powerful emotions. I'm really excited, though, that we're going to the water because if you ever notice, a lot of lifelong memories are made on water. And in fact, you can look at this, what we're doing. We've already done some walking. You might even say about this, it's kind of like a pentathlon. The athlon part's athletic. Penta, that's 5. So you have 5 athletic pieces to this, and we have several athletic pieces as we go to the water. And as I mentioned too, it's exciting about water because of the memories that are made there. Some of my best memories of life come with my dad and Edmund and JT, with my brother, and time we spent on the water, with my cousin, with my friends, with a whole bunch of my church family. Gage, where are you? Gage, there you are, Gage. Gage and I, a couple days ago, we got to go out on the water, and would you believe if I told you that we brought home 171 keeper fish? Now, this is coming from fishermen, so you can take it as you will, but Gage and I, we guesstimated, so you know this is accurate, scientific here, we guesstimated we caught 3 for every one that we kept. We figured we probably caught 500 fish over. How long do you think you'd have to be on the water to catch 500 fish? You would think like 12, 15 hours. 6 hours. That's a memory gauge. You don't have to believe it. We know. We were there. We saw it. Okay? That's a memory that I'm never going to forget. Well, about a week ago, our family, we got to go on our first family float trip for the year. We went on the Osage Fork, beautiful stream. Osage Fork of the Gasconade River, and it was certainly a memorable event. I'm so thankful as a family we're getting to do that more. The kids are getting big enough now. There's so many memories that are made on water. I bet everyone in this room, whether you're a frequent aquatic goer or not, you probably have some unbelievable memories from the water. I wish I could tell you that all of them are pleasant. However, you and I both realize that there are some experiences on the water that will startle you. And if you'll humor me, I'd like to share just a few of those with you as we get started. My brother and I, we went to a new fishing hole in 95, South 95. You guys probably know where this is, on Bryant Creek. I know my wife does. Pretty stream of water. It's pretty swift. We're super excited about it. Well, my brother and I, we're not bald, okay? JT said, I could confuse you for your brother. It's not because we're bald. We're follically challenged. There's a huge difference between the two. And my brother, he started out with this really cool hairstyle, and finally I gave in. I'm like, all right, okay, I agree. It's the best one there is. But my brother and I, being follically challenged, we typically wear hats when we go on the stream. At some point, we'll put those on our heads. Well, this is like 20 years ago. We had straw hats that we were wearing at the time. I forgot mine, so my brother, being the kind soul he is, loaned his to me for the day. And we're fishing on the stream, and as I often do, I got hung up in a tree. I'm trying to get my lure and shaking the tree back and forth. Nothing. I'm going to have to go get it. Okay. So he's motoring me over, and we get over there, and I'm shaking this. He says, "What's that buzzing? You hear that buzzing sound?" Yeah. I'm just focused trying to get my lure, and all of a sudden I hear, "Ow!" And I look back, "Ow!" And he's slapping his head. I'm like, "What's wrong with this guy?" And he said, "Break that thing off. We're getting out of there." Okay. So I break my lure off, and when we're looking back, a huge hornet's nest in the tree. And it's just because I forgot my hat. My brother gave me his, and his follically challenged head was exposed while mine was covered up. So that's very, very kind of. Now that's something to be afraid of. Let me tell you. You get under a hornet's nest in a tree on a stream. Another time, my brother and I, some of you heard this one. We were going down a rapid. The water was a little bit up on the Gasconade River. And all of a sudden, we're going down this rapid paddling. Normally, my brother's in the back running the trolling motor. He was tired of getting all of my tangle-ups undone for me. He said, you're running the motor in the back today. Okay, all right, fine, whatever. So I'm in there running the motor. We have to put it up there. We're going through a rapid. We're trying to paddle. My brother's in the front of the boat, and all of a sudden I see him swing the paddle into a tree limb that's hanging over the river. This guy's nuts. What do you do? You know, try to keep us. Well, there's nothing we could do. We're moving. We hit the tree limb, both of us. We navigate around. We get through it. He said, where did that snake go? What snake? There was a snake in that tree. Didn't you see it? No. Where'd it go? I don't know. I never saw the snake. He said, it fell somewhere. We're looking all around. Nothing. Cool. We go to the next hole, and we're fishing, both of us casting. Out of nowhere, my brother drops his pole, jumps up, and starts stabbing the bottom of the boat with his paddle. I'm telling you, he's crazy. What are you doing? Where'd that snake go? What are you talking about? He's seeing things by this point. We looked there, we couldn't. He said, it's got to be under the cooler. It was just in the boat. So we get over to the side, lift up the cooler. There's a big old snake in the boat. That thing had fallen out of the limb because we got hit by it. We didn't see it fall into the boat. And we're looking all around. He didn't see it because his feet were just a little bit under the seat. That thing had coiled up on top of his feet as he's fishing. We killed that snake with a paddle, and we flipped it out. I'm going to tell you, that's a reason to be scared on the water. You got a snake in your boat. One time I was fishing with my brother Marty. We're in this hole of the Gasconade. It's probably 150 feet wide. We're pretty close to the bank. We're casting, just catching some fish and really focused on it. And thankfully, out of the corner of my eye, I turned and looked, and this isn't a not so harmful snake in the ozone. This is a cottonmouth swimming on top of the water, about to climb into our boat. You remember that one? What do you do? I have nothing in my hands, and the thing's about to climb into our boat. So I do what I can. I have a 5-foot ultralight rod that I'm holding in and I reel it in my lure, and I take the end of it and flip the snake up in the air. Hits the water, comes right back at our boat. Flip it again, comes right back at our boat. This time I really reached in and flipped it. And I think you got the hint. It wasn't welcome in our boat. And so it just swam out. That's a reason to be scared. Well, about a week ago, when my family and we went on the river, not everything goes as the way you plan. We show up to a place on the Osage Fork of the Gasconade. Raider is where we put in, double Z. Never put in there before. And we get there, and the river's in great shape. The thing's just a mud pit. And we have to carry 3 kayaks, my heavy John boat, obviously, I bring the bare necessities, my trolling motor and battery, and our big cooler, our dry cooler, and my fishing gear and tackle, and we have to carry and traipse through all this mud. You have to just walk through. You can't even pull the vehicle down to it. So we're going through all this mud. Vanessa may or may not have been the only one to slip and fall in one of the mud puddles. She didn't go face first, but she went back. She got up, and her whole backside is covered in mud. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was not happy. That's the start to our day. I mean, it probably took an hour just to get going on the stream. We go about a quarter of a mile downstream, and we encounter the biggest log jam you have ever seen. I've been fishing for a quarter of a century on 15 Ozark streams. I have encountered plenty of log jams in my day. I've never seen one like this one. But I've also never turned back on a float when I encountered a log jam. The problem was this one was like the Tower of Babel. It went all the way to the heavens, and I'm pretty sure it went across half of the earth. It's the whole stream. You can't even see any water running through it. We get to the other side, it's going underneath. But you can't even see any water. I look all the way over on this side, scope it out. It's all the way up on the bank. This is ridiculous. A quarter of a mile into I'm not turning back. Kids are like, maybe we should, Mom. No. At this point, we're committed. We're not going through the mud hole back home. I'm not going through that again. And so we look on the other side, and there's a steep mud bank, and there are all kinds of weeds. You know how that is in the river. So I take my paddle, and I'm exploring, hitting all these weeds, making sure there's no snakes in it. And I find a pathway after going about maybe 100 feet, maybe a couple hundred. There's a steep ravine back down into the river, and there's still like some debris, but I think we can get our boats in and work our way around it. 3 kayaks, 1 fishing boat, trolling motor, battery, 2 coolers, all of our junk, and our floaties and all that stuff. It probably took us an hour to work our way around. but I have still not turned back from a log jam. And we did make, I will tell you though, I was worn out before we even started this float. You go on the water and things don't always go the way you expect. Jesus and the disciples right now, they go on the water, and this trip on the water doesn't go exactly the way that they've expected. Verse 24 of Matthew 14, now the boat was in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. John's account in chapter 6 says they're about 4 to 5 miles in on their trip, and that would accord perfectly with what Matthew tells us, because the Sea of Galilee, it's a unique place geographically in the world. It's about a 10-mile wide freshwater lake. It's got some decent size. And what's unique about it is it's 680 feet below sea level. But you travel just about 40, 50 miles to the northwest, and there's this geographic rise called Mount Hermon that's 9,230 feet tall. And if you're looking at a change of elevation here, I know it's minus 680, but you have to add the two, absolute value, together, and you get over 9,900, about 10,000 feet it drops in about 40 miles. Mountains are terrific weather producers, and they love natural wind tunnels. The Jordan River Valley is a wind tunnel from Mount Hermon, and there are these powerful storms of oceanic almost proportions that will come sweeping down Mount Hermon and come blowing across the wide open flat Sea of Galilee, and these storms are they're preposterous. Well, the disciples are out on this boat, and one of these storms blows up, comes sweeping across, and what are they supposed to do? They're in the middle of the lake. They can't turn back now. What are they going to do? You may think that sounds pretty bad. It does get worse. Verse 23, we're told that this occurs at evening or at night. You ever been on the water in undesirable circumstances at night? That's when things get really scary. Tad, your former instructor and my former classmate, Brent Green, we decided we'd have enough school for a week. And it was the end of the week, and I think it was research week, and we decided that the last day of a research week, we would take the afternoon and the evening, we'd go fishing together. It was like 90 degrees, I think a record-setting day for heat in April. What are two fishermen supposed to do? You don't sit in the classroom, when that kind of weather comes around. So we went to the Big Sac River. Brent said, hey, I've got this 12-foot John boat, 2-horse gas motor, and we'll go shooting up several miles as far as we can go the river, and it's really good fishing up there. Great, I love white bass fishing in the spring. And so we get to the river, and we're sorting all of our things, and I'm thinking, where are the paddles? Well, eventually, have you ever seen that little orange emergency paddle? Telescoping paddle? Yeah. He had one that's all he had. I never had a little kid's paddle, much less just one. Oh, that's fine. We'll use just the motor for wherever we're traveling anyway. All right, okay. It's new to me, but fine. We're going upstream. We've gone some distance. Whoa, as much as a 2-horse wheel, more like, We're going upstream, and all of a sudden I hear, boom, and the boat just stops. The motor just dies. And we felt something. We were looking around. We hit a log. He fires up the motor, but we're not moving. I know this. We've shoot a pin. All right, no big deal. All right, get your spare pin out, put it in, and we'll get going. You do have a spare pin, right? No. Dude, you're supposed to carry it. It's no big deal. Just put your spare pin in. Well, they don't have it. I never really knew for sure what the expression up a creek without a paddle meant. I learned that day. We had at best half a paddle. It's like a Snoopy paddle. Maybe 3 feet in length, and one of these. Well, we're already committed by that point. What are two fishermen supposed to do? We stayed. And the fish got biting about dark, and man, we're just reeling in these fish, catching them left and right. But then it starts to get dark, and I'm pretty sure it was a new moon at that time. There was very much light in the sky. And all the way back, we had the little Snoopy paddle, trying to get, neither one of us brought a very good flashlight. And it gets darker and darker. We're just using the silhouette of the tree lines to even tell that we're still going where we need to go. And every now and then you can see them moving a little quicker than what they were before, so your speed's picking up. Well, it's going a little faster, and we're going down a rapid. And suddenly we feel, boom! and the boat just stops, spins around. We hit a giant root wad that we didn't see. We were able to keep our boat from spilling, losing all of our poles and our tackle. I think we got back to the vehicle at 10:30. I've never been so happy to get off the water in all of my life. Now, that would have been scary enough to have happened during the daylight, but to do all that at night is way worse. This isn't just going on. This is going on at night, what the disciples are experiencing. These are monstrous oceanic-style waves that are swaying the boat, filling the boat. They're scared out of their minds. And then something very strange happens. Verse 25. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came walking on the sea, coming out to meet them. What would you think? If it's at night, a terrible storm, you think you're about to die, and then you see somebody just walking, and this isn't a sea like this. It's a sea like this. He's walking up over the waves and coming out to them. What would you think if that's the case? In the middle of the night, it's in the fourth watch. That's between, for the Jews and the Romans by now, that's between 3 and 6 a.m. What would your reaction be? What would you think is going on? Oh, the disciples are sure. This is like a horror movie. Verse 26, when they see him walking on the water, they're troubled. And they say, it's a ghost! And they cried out for fear. You ever hear a group of grown men scream in unison? I heard he screamed by himself, but never a group of grown men. Oh, man. Really, they think they're in a horror movie. We all thought we were going to drown. No, it's a ghost. He's going to eat us. They're not thinking logically. They're sleep deprived. At this point, just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. That float trip that we went on, it was kind of a rough start to it. We had a nice 2-3 miles after that, beautiful water, and just everything's going great. Well, we start going down a rapid, not quite as swift as this one, but there's a log out in the water. And I'm thinking, oh, this could not be good. I'm going down in the hard plastic boat with Kyler, my boat and battery. I have a lot of weight on. I can't turn mine very quickly anyway, and it just sweeps us right underneath it and kind of traps our boat, and the bottom goes under and water starts filling into the boat. I mean, I've done this 1,000 times. I know to balance it out. I got water in the boat, but yeah, I lifted it up and pushed off, and we're fine. I take that because it's really stable with the young kids. Here comes Kobe in his kayak, first-time kayaker down this rapid. I have an idea what's going to happen. Then after him, Reagan comes down. Now, Mom knows when she gets there. She's done it enough. She gets out of her 2-person kayak with Ro and walks it down there. Things just keep happening. When one thing goes wrong, doesn't it seem to snowball a lot of times? Many things you encounter. When you think it can't get any worse, a ghost is running out to eat us. It does. But what do you do in this? I can tell you what I did, being the head of the household and in charge of this float trip. I just started coaching them through it. Kobe, it's all right. Dad's right here. You're fine. Just, Reagan, you're okay. I'm here with you. Notice what Jesus does. Verse 27, immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, he's coaching them through it. Be of good cheer. It's okay. It is I. I'm here with you. Everything's going to be all right. Do not be afraid. Oh, he's here. Oh, he says it's going to be all right. So we know everything's going to be okay. And they experience this second of the powerful emotions. They go from terrified to now trusting. Peter's actually kind of excited about this. Peter answers him and says, Lord, if it's really you, then command me to come out to meet you on the water. So Jesus says, sure, let's make this a party. Come on, come walk on top of these waves and come out to meet me. And get this, 29, when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on top of water to go see Jesus. Do we understand the blessing of having Jesus in our lives? And when we encounter these turbulent storms and we're scared out of our minds, what am I going to do? How are we ever going to make it through this? Jesus says, hello, still here. I'm here with you. Oh, and after you talk to God through Christ and prayer, isn't there just this soothing something that comes over your, okay, now everything's going to be okay. Well, that's where Peter is. It's no big deal. I can walk on top of. I don't have to worry about my storms anymore because my Savior is here with me and he says it's going to be okay. The problem, though, is we're still human beings. and we get to wavering because we know that in our minds, but then we see the effects of our storm all around us. That's where Peter and the disciples are right now. They begin to be torn between these two powerful emotions. Okay, I know Jesus is here, so I can walk on the water. Whoa! He gets out there, he starts seeing the effects of the storm. Verse 30, when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and he starts to sink. And beginning to sink, he cries out saying, Lord, save me! I was going over this lesson, studying for it, and the day after we'd gone on our float trip, and I was thinking, on a small scale, I can relate to this a little bit. My kids are going through this rapid, and Kobe's never experienced anything like this, and his kayak gets pushed against and slightly underneath a log. Any guesses what happens? And Kobe goes down in the water. and he pops back up, and he's on there. Kyle was pretty smart, I thought. He's hanging on to the kayak. He's never experienced. We've all been there. Well, I'm not making fun of you, son. We all understand. Help! Dad! Dad, save me! Please! Well, a little bit after, Reagan comes down there. She's got a little experience from last year. Swept up right underneath that log. Whoop! In the kayak. But it's different with Reagan. There's actually not the blip noise. I look back, the kayak flips. It's pretty cool. She's like a boss. She's like hanging on to this log. She's clutched onto it for dear life. Not really saying a whole lot, smiling and laughing every now and then. It's kind of neat to watch as a dad. But Kobe made me think of that with Jesus. Lord, save me. Dad, help! Save me, please! He's in the water. He's never experienced this before. It's one thing where I was sitting on this, it's kind of like almost like a little mini bass boat, and I'm sitting up on this platform watching all this unfold. It didn't seem all that scary to me. Well, easy for me to say. I'm in the safety of the boat watching what's going on. But when you're in the water itself and these things, it's a whole different animal. It was scary enough for Peter when he's in the boat, but when he gets in the water, he thinks it's all over. When we're watching the storm, ooh, that's a little concerning. When you get in the middle of the storm, you don't know if you're going to survive. That's when it gets really frightening. Verse 31, immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and tells him, maybe as he's still in the water, it almost sounds like right there, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? How did you lose your focus? I told you, I'm here with you, and everything's going to be okay. You're torn between the two. And sure enough, verse 32, everything's just fine. When they get into the boat, the wind ceases. Storm's over. Who's in control of this storm? Well, we find out if we didn't know by now. Jesus was in control all along. Now, listen, Christ understands that we're not always going to have the perfect mindset through things. He recognizes that we're weak and sometimes we're insecure. He gets that. But what he does at least expect out of us is that when we don't understand and he sends us through a life storm to teach us a vital life lesson, he expects us to come out having learned something for the next storm that we face. And thankfully, by this point, I think the disciples, Peter included, he gets it. He gets the lesson. The notes are in the boat, verse 33. They came and they worshiped him, saying, oh, okay. Now, truly, we understand. You are the Son of God, and with you with us, we never have anything to fear, no matter what storm comes our way. I bet you're probably going through some kind of life storm right now. And if not, you probably just came out of one, and if not, you're about to go into one. That's the way life works. It's just storms constantly. There are times of insecurity, there are times of weakness, and God gets that. He understands. But he does expect us to take a lesson out of the storm that we're facing. And as we're torn, and yeah, I know you're with us, but, okay, I'm trying to get rid of those buts in your mind. No, it's fine. Do we take the lesson coming out of it? Okay, now we look back, by the way, afterward, Kobe, 5 minutes after, he's crying, 5 minutes, maybe 10 after, he's laughing about what happened. And now he knows, and now Reagan, there was nothing really to be afraid of. It was okay. And I don't know if they know this. I'll tell you more in just a minute. But Dad was there, watching everything that was going on, making sure everything was okay. Now, I hate to do this to you, but I purposely saved the beginning for the end. We're at the end of this story, but just for a minute here, let's rewind to the beginning of the story. I want to show you something I find really cool. So heading into all of this, as Brody read for us a moment ago, verse 22, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he, all by his lonesome, sent the multitudes away. Now, something we learn in our story from John 5 and the paralyzed or sick, whatever it is, man, is that Jesus knows things beforehand, right? Do you think Jesus might have known what was going to happen with the disciples on this water? Yet he stays back away from them and purposely sends them out on the water. It may be they didn't want to go. He made them get into the boat and sent them out by themselves. Now look at this, verse 23. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was alone there. What we do know for sure is that Christ understood what was going to happen to the disciples in the storm that was about to hit them. I'm going to give you a suggestion that I will admit we don't know this for sure. But I would love to know the contents of that prayer as Jesus went up on the mountain by himself. We know after it's just by his words that he controls the wind and the sea. I think it might be that prior it's by his words he controls the wind and the sea. I wonder if he doesn't go up on the mountaintop in part to pray for this storm to come upon the disciples, to teach them a very important lesson. Now, as Kobe was in the water when that kayak flipped over, some of you may think this is awful. I had an idea what was going to take place with Kobe and with Reagan as they came through there, especially Reagan by the point that I saw what happened with Kobe. So Kobe's on that kayak hanging on for dear life. Help! Dad, save me! My favorite word, I'm not making light of it, so my favorite word was please! And I was ready. But when I saw him come right back up on the kayak, I thought, he's all right. That's what I said. You're all right, son. I'm right here. You're doing a great job. Just stay on the kayak. Dad! I said, look, hey, even if you fall off the kayak, buddy, I said, look, you're in water. You're a good swimmer. You just swim in the water to the other side. Help, please! 5 minutes after, he's laughing about what had happened. Reagan comes down through. She goes full superhero. I mean, just hugs right up on that. She's hanging from the log. She's tipped over the kayak. She has the dry cooler, by the way. What do? I'm concerned about the dry cooler. I go and I get the dry cooler and the kayak, and she's hanging onto the log. I did not go get her off the log. Doing great, sis. I'm right here. Hey, look, just drop down. It's water. Great swimmer. You're fine. Just swim over to the other side. She hung on for about a minute. And she dropped in the water and she swam to the other side. I could have intervened with both of them, but I didn't for this reason. I wanted both of them to learn a vital floating and maybe more importantly, a life lesson. Look, there are going to be times that things don't go the way you want. You're planning on staying in the boat the whole time. There are going to be times that your boat turns over. Everybody's done that. But when it does, don't panic. You're in water, and you can swim, and everything's going to be all right. And everything was. Jesus sends away the disciples in this boat. He goes up on the mountain to pray. I personally believe, just as he uses his words to control the wind and the wave later, he uses his words to bring the wind and the wave, the storm, upon his disciples, because he wants to, and he does, teach them a powerful boating, but much more life lesson. I was there ready to intervene at any point if one of my kids couldn't do something for themselves. Jesus stands by ready to intervene at any point when there's something that we can't handle. And understand, there is one thing that we can never handle that will cause us to sink deep into this sea and will cause us to drown. We can't handle sin all by ourselves, and he knows that. And that's why he says, okay, let me take this one for you. Let me do for you what you cannot do for yourself. And just as Jesus did with Peter, when we're sinking in our sin, we're about to drown, he wants us to cry out, Lord, I need help, save me. And he reaches down into the water and he pulls us to safety. Now, we don't do this verbally, but we do it actively. 1 Peter 3:21, there is also something which now saves us, water, baptism. Not the removal of the filth of the flesh, but the answer, better translated, you look up that word, the appeal or the request, the plea to God for a clean conscience. Acts 22:16, and now while you're waiting, arise and be baptized and wash away your sins. And when you do that, you know what you're doing toward God? Calling on his name. You're calling out to him, not with your words, but with your actions in response to what he's told you to deal with your sins. You can do that, but what you can never do in the forgiveness of them, he says, step back and let me take care of that. Let me intervene then. And from that point, Jesus gives us the opportunity to walk with him in a way that he does. And we can understand from then on every storm that we face, there's no reason to be terrified, but every reason just to trust him, as we sang in the song. And he doesn't require us to know how, the method that is going to be used. Just trust me, it's always worked out before. It will work out this time. You don't have to drown in your problems. In fact, you can walk on top of them. And when it's all said and done, we can laugh together about it and the power that you hold because of me. But to walk on top of the storms in your life, you have to take Jesus up on his invitation. Lord, if it's really you, oh, it's me. Do you understand that just as with Peter, for those who are baptized believers, Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20, he says, and behold, as you're living for me, behold, don't forget this, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. And sometimes we want to, help, God, I need it now. You're fine. Let me teach you a little something. And when the time's right, I'll help you out. You can do just as Peter did. You can walk on top of the water. But you have to take Jesus up on his invitation to come as we stand and sing.